Welcome to Different Makes a Difference, where we discuss investment matters that matter to everyday investors. Join Odlum Brown's equity analysts as we examine pertinent topics in today's markets and look at things a little differently. Odlum Brown is an independent Canadian investment firm. We provide integrated wealth management solutions to help clients achieve their financial goals, and we've been doing so for over 100 years. Join us for some lessons we've learned along the way that can make a difference for the future.
Hello and welcome to Different Makes a Difference. I'm Stephen Boland. In recent podcasts, we've highlighted new stock recommendations. Today we have another. There's no precise timing as to when a new recommendation comes along. We're always looking for new ideas, and the opportunity set ebbs and flows. With the stock market doing well, it may not seem like an opportune time for new recommendations, but the stock market is made up of a lot of different companies, and there's often opportunity somewhere. We don't believe that long-term financial success is achieved by trying to jump in and out of the market. Most people do better by owning a portfolio of attractively priced, good businesses and holding them through the ups and downs. At any point in time, you're trying to hold the best hand you can, seeking stocks that look better than the alternatives. In past episodes, we've highlighted Moody's and Airbnb as fitting that bill. Today, we're going to discuss a company called James Hardie. And to do that, we're joined by Cory. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Steve.
So, Cory, up until a few months ago, I had never heard of James Hardie. Now, I seem to hear about it everywhere. When I mention it to people, they're like, oh, I know that. They make Hardie board. I was watching the baseball game yesterday and it showed up on an advertisement. For those who aren't familiar with it, who or what is James Hardie?
Thanks, Steve. Well, first of all, I think you described the stock market environment very well. And James Hardie is the type of business we want to own for the long term. There's short-term headwinds that have hurt the stock price lately, but we think it's a good opportunity to buy the stock. So we'll get more into that later. Let's talk about who is James Hardie. They sell fiber cement called Hardie board. North America is the biggest market for them at about 80%, and Australia and Europe are each about 10%. Hardie is one of those unique businesses where the product has actually become the category. So think of Airbnb or Uber. We don't say, I'm going to have a short-term rental or a ride share. We say I'm renting an Airbnb or taking an Uber. So that is an indication of an incredible brand. And I think, the reason that they've been so successful is it's just a great product. So the siding is very high quality. It looks like wood, but it never rots. Protects your house from storms, from insects, from fire. Doesn't fade. Never needs to be painted or very rarely. And it's actually a product that home builders reuse to make their homes look more luxurious and attract new buyers. So it's a premium product compared to vinyl, stucco, or even other wood products. Costs a bit more, usually about 20% more. But because there's virtually no maintenance, it lasts a lot longer, the cost is lower. So you actually save money over the long term. Last year, Hardie actually bought a similar business. So this is a composite decking business called TimberTech. Doesn't have quite the same brand power as Hardie, but it is a duopoly with rival Trex, and the economics are excellent. And it has many of the same characteristics. So it lasts for decades, has that premium look, but actually a reduction in maintenance is even more important for a deck because it's more exposed to the elements.
Can you tell us about those economics? It sounds like a superior product. What makes James Hardie a good business?
Well, essentially, there's limited competition. They're the only player. So in siding, they have a 90% share. In cement siding, a 90% share. They share an 85% duopoly with Trex and composite decking. So essentially, like I said, they own the category. What you're doing is competing against vinyl or wood. You can charge more and generate higher margins and just take share from a weaker competitor. And I would say beyond the brand, Hardie actually has a world-class distribution network. This is a key competitive advantage. In the building sector, distribution really does matter. You have to have those relationships with those customers, with the builders, and they have that in spades. Regardless whether you're going with a contractor or you're going with Home Depot and trying to do it yourself, Hardie will be there and be ready for you. They're expanding that. So they're growing that network, but it's already one of the best. And they're doing other things to improve their products as well. They're trying to lower the install costs, make the product lighter and easier to use. So it really is an exciting time for the company.
Well, let's talk about that excitement and that growth a little bit more. What's going to drive the growth of this business?
The most important part for Hardie is that they can continue to take market share. We don't need a booming housing market. They can keep working with the industry, just really do more of the same, keep growing, because they have a great value proposition. They have a great product that is better than vinyl or wood or other materials. They also sell directly to home builders, so a booming housing market wouldn't be such a bad thing. They could participate in that. They have a 25% share in new builds. That's up from about 10% 15 years ago, so they've steadily improved. We think that can continue, again, because they have a great product.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's opportunities beyond just the housing market, but the housing market will make a big difference for this company. You said earlier it's 80% American, so we need to think about the US housing market in particular. A lot of stocks related to US housing are kind of down in the dumps right now. Activity has been pretty subdued. Tell us more about what's going on in US housing.
Yeah, look, the new home market has been really soft. As I mentioned, in the fall, it's a tough time for that sector due to higher rates. We think really the big driver of this is that we have 30-year mortgage rates out there, which people are locked into. So those people don't necessarily want to sell and give up those mortgages. People that are looking to buy have to take on higher interest rates and higher mortgage rates, and they don't have the benefit of those 30-year mortgages. So there's a bit of a stalemate between the two sides. And I think that's the main reason why activity has been low. It's interesting. Usually when we have high housing prices, which we do right now, the activity is booming. People are taking advantage of that, but activity has been much lower than normal. So we think this can improve over time. There's life events. People's mindsets will change, and then people will just get used to higher interest rates, and we'll eventually end up with more activity on the new build side. Either way, Hardie should be able to take market share and grow the business. On the renovation market, it's actually much larger. So this is actually a bigger opportunity for Hardie, and they only have about a 15% share. So there's a lot more that they can do there. And as I said, it's a bigger market that they can tap into. And I think one of the really important parts of this is that if you look at the age of homes, 50% of the homes out there are 50 years old. So there's a big opportunity for them to put new siding on these old homes. And people can really only put that off for so long. If you look back at where spending's been, we've had 4 down years. So renovation spending in the US has gone down for 4 years in a row. A typical cycle would be about 4 or 5 years. So hopefully we're coming near the end of that. I think one of the main reasons for having a down period is we had a COVID boom. So during COVID, people were stuck in their houses and they were renovating and improving their houses. And so we're coming out of that. So we kind of have the post-COVID hangover right now that we've gone through. And again, we think we're nearing the end of that. And as these homes age, we'll see kind of this gradual recovery.
Okay, so it sounds like a good backdrop when we look on a longer term basis for this company. I want to pick up on, you referenced earlier their composite decking, and they bought a company called AZEK a little while back. And let's just say it wasn't a very popular deal. The stock got hit really hard on that deal.
Mm-hmm.
Why did people hate this deal?
Yeah, people definitely hated the deal, and it's actually a reason why we became more interested in the stock. The main reason why people didn't like the deal was price. They paid too much for AZEK, one of the higher multiples that we've seen in the sector. And Hardie management argued that there would be synergies, so they would have cost savings, and there was overlap that they could take advantage of, and there was cross-selling, so they could sell more of the product as well. There's a risk, certainly, that they don't achieve the benefits that they're talking about to make the deal make sense from a purchase price standpoint, but we're not paying that. We're buying the stock today, and so we're getting both companies now at a discount. It's really water under the bridge. There's not much we can do about that. We don't see them doing another big deal. They made this deal. In our mind, it's a deal that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, let's expand on that. Why does it make sense in your mind?
Well, you're bringing together 2 very high quality companies, 2 of the best quality companies in the space. They're also highly complementary. They're similar type products, similar economics, and you're selling to the same people. So, as I mentioned before, Hardie has one of the best distribution networks in the industry. They can now take both of those products and push them through the distribution network and utilize the relationships that they have with those builders and with those contractors. So it's a great opportunity to kind of combine these 2 complementary businesses. I think as those cost savings come through, you're going to see a real benefit in the next couple of quarters. And the balance sheet will improve too. One of the issues that people had with the deal is that they took on too much leverage. And so when they made the deal, because the price was high, they had to add on some debt. And so the leverage went up, but they're going to pay that down because both businesses generate a ton of cash. And those cost savings can also be used to pay down debt. So we're not so worried about the balance sheet, but that was something that was also weighing on it. When we look forward, we see a business that is going to have better results. Expectations are very low. We see a balance sheet that's improving. And ultimately, we see a housing market that will improve for them as well. I guess the final thing is just we like the AZEK culture. They're buying a business I think is very conservative and has historically actually been taking share. They have a product that I think is actually better than the Trex product, but they haven't been able to get it to market. Most people would say it looks better. It's certainly cooler underfoot, and that's a big benefit for them.
You're describing a lot of positives here, but I want to poke back at some more potential risks. Another risk is asbestos. This is a company that has an asbestos liability. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the asbestos liability is about $1 billion. So it's a big number, but this dates back to their days in Australia, kind of the mid-'80s. So we're up over 40 years now in terms of when those exposures happened. They do have ongoing liabilities. I think they're probably actually peaking right now, and then they will gradually trend lower. But this is something we keep an eye on, but it is also something that's well appreciated by the market. It's been out there for a very long time. They have a trust that manages those payouts, and they pay into that every year. But there's been a lot of work done to ensure that there's a strong understanding of the liability that's out there. And so I think it's very manageable.
It's not the only company with an asbestos liability. Asbestos was a very popular product back in the day. It wasn't just James Hardie was doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
It was pretty common. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it was used in almost all building products. One of the main attributes was that it prevented fire. So it was an additive to a lot of products. They obviously didn't know the dangers. They stopped using it at the appropriate time. But again, those liabilities are outstanding. They're well positioned to pay those. And again, I think it's well appreciated by the market.
So I think we've covered a lot here, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Maybe can you put it all together for us? What do you want people to walk away with when they think about James Hardie?
Yeah, I mean, the housing market is going to ebb and flow. We're going to have ups and downs. But we think over the long term, the demand for their products is going to grow very nicely. They own two of the best businesses. If you look at decking and siding, they're two of the best businesses in the sector. Some of the highest margins, some of the highest returns. And we think there's still room to grow, both by taking market share and by having a better housing market at some point down the road. And that includes new builds and renovation. They have a dominant market share already. They have superior products, and we think they can just continue doing more of the same. And as you put those two companies together, there'll be a lot of benefits, a lot of cost savings, a lot of cross-selling that they can do to grow faster, I think, than people realize. So the best part is we can buy it now at a discount because of all the things we talked about with some of the housing headwinds, the leverage, and just some people not loving the deal. We can buy the stock at a discount. We can get a great business at a great price. And there's, I think, an underappreciated growth story there.
Right. That's why we call this podcast Different Makes a Difference. If we see a different view than the market, we can view that as an opportunity. And it sounds like we have that here with James Hardie. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Cory, for joining. As always, if you like this podcast, please hit the subscribe button and you'll be reminded of future episodes. Take care, and we look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Different Makes a Difference. Just as every individual is unique, so are your financial circumstances. Be sure to talk to your professional advisors for advice related specifically to you. Our podcast is for general information purposes for Canadians only. The views expressed are those of the presenters and may not reflect the opinions of Odlum Brown. Be sure to check out our full disclaimer and subscribe to the podcast at odlumbrown.com/differentmakesadifference. Odlum Brown is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund.